well, that's what they want us to do.
Stuff here, look at. Oh, don't be done today.
Well, I was gonna say, we can rush this, no problem.
At least the first study I'll come.
Hi, everybody, I'm back. Morning. Morning, Zach. Good morning. And Roger.
Morning.
Roger's here too. Oh, yeah, it's okay.
We'll go ahead and get started. Jason, would you say a prayer for us, please? So we're in chapter 24. At this point, Abraham's about 140 years old, and he has sent, in verse 2, it says he sent the oldest servant of his house, who ruled over everything, to go get a wife for Isaac. And we stopped in verse 12, is what I've got written down here. Verse 24. Verse 5, we notice that the servant says, perhaps a woman will not be willing to follow me. And keeps on going down, and Abraham says, talk to the Lord, and he will send an angel before you, and you will take a wife for my son. So there's another blessing that God has given him. Verse 9, so the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. And Abraham said, if she will not come, your release of your duties. Okay. Going on, verse 12. Then he said, O Lord my God, my master, please give Abraham success this day and show kindness to my master Abraham. So he's praying that things will be successful. Comes with great love for his master, I would think. It says, behold, here I stand in the well of the water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw the water. Now let it be that the young woman whom I say, please let your pitcher down that I may drink. She says, drink, and I will also give your camels a drink, and let her be the one that you have appointed for your servant Isaac. And by this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master. Verse 15. And it happened before he had finished speaking that, behold, Rebekah, the one who was born Beth, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her pitcher on her shoulder. Now the young woman was very beautiful, and behold, a virgin. No man had known her, and she went down to the well to fill the pitcher, and came up. Why was he sending someone back to his homeland to get a wife for Isaac? Why did Abraham do that?
He wanted to verify that the Canaanite, or not a Canaanite, I think he probably thought maybe he would marry somebody there if he stayed, not according to his will.
Right. Esau done that, didn't he?
Yeah.
We go on to see that Esau married out of the Canaanite people. Okay. Verse 16. Nope, I'm sorry. Verse 17. And the servant ran unto me and said, please let me drink a little water from your pitcher. So she said, drink, my lord. And then she let her pitcher down to her hand and gave him a drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, I will also draw for your camels until they have finished drinking. Then she quickly emptied the pitcher into the trough and ran back to the well and drew for his camels. So he had taken how many camels? 10, wasn't it? 10 camels. I don't know how long this journey was, but I would say the camels was pretty thirsty. I wonder how many gallons of water she drew up. Verse 21. And the man wondering at her, remaining silent, so as to know whether or not the Lord made this journey prosperous or not. So it was, the camels had finished drinking, and the man took a golden nose ring weighing half a shekel, 2 bracelets for her wrist, weighing 10 shekels of gold, and said, whose daughter are you? Tell me, please, is there room in your father's house for us to lodge? So she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, Michael's son, whom she bore to Nabon. Moreover, she said to him, we have straw and feed enough and room to lodge. And there the man bowed his head and worshiped the Lord. So he prayed that things would go well. And he's found Rebecca, and he's praising God now that things is going well, that things have come to the way he wanted it to, the way God had it planned. Verse 27, and he said, blessed be the Lord of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his mercy or his truth towards my master. As for me, being on my way, the Lord led me to the house of my master's brethren. So the young woman ran and told her mother's household these things. Now Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, and Laban ran out to the man by the well. So it came to pass, he saw the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrist. And when he had heard the words of his sister Rebekah saying, this man has spoke to me, that he went to the man and he stood there by the camels at the well. And he said, come in, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? For we have prepared the house and a place for the camels. Then the man came into the house and loaded the camels and provided the straw and the feed of the camels and the water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. So not only did he go, he took servants with him. 33. Food was set before them to eat. Said, I will not eat until I have told about my errand. And he said, speak on. And he said, I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has blessed my master greatly. He has become great. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male and female servants, and camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore him a son. when she was old. And to him he gave all that he has. 37. Now my master made me swear, saying, you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whom I dwell. But you shall go to my father's house and to the family and take a wife for my son. I said to my master, perhaps a woman will not follow me. But he said, the Lord will walk before me. He will send an angel, and you will prosper on your way. So he knew what was going to happen beforehand, right? Sounds like?
Well, he was told there'd be some kind of signal as to what would happen.
Yeah.
One comment about the woman, pretty nervy at that day and age for a young woman to just allow a visitor that she didn't know at all
That's true.
to kind of get close to her. I mean, started with the water, but it ended up with giving her jewelry, and
Yeah.
I don't know, in this day and age, whether that's very wise for a woman to.
I'll guarantee it's not. But Abraham said that the master angel will go with you and walk with you and prosper your way. What did he tell the guys when he went up to sacrifice Isaac?
We'll be back.
We'll be back. We will be back. Yeah. Yeah. Well, no doubt about it. Okay. Verse 41, I believe it is. Before you used to take a wife from my son, my father's house. You will be clear from this oath when you arrive among the family, for if they do not give her to you, then you shall be released from your oath. And in this day I came to the well and said, O Lord of my master Abraham, if you will not prosper the way I go, then behold, I stand at the well of water, and it shall come to pass that when the virgin comes to draw water, I say to her, please give me a drink and pitcher. And she said to me, drink, I will draw for your camels also, and let that be the woman who the Lord has appointed for my master's son. Okay, it keeps on going on, and then they take off. Let's jump down to,
Hey, Raj,
yes.
it seems like Abraham wasn't absolutely sure that his family would give a wife, because I wonder if he had left on good terms originally from his father's house.
I don't know. I would think that he would have, because the Lord called him, but there again, I don't have any idea.
Did his father go part way with him?
I don't remember that.
I was thinking Justin mentioned that the other day. His father went part way with him, and then.
He did that after his brother died, yeah. They all left here. Yeah.
But I was looking at my map last week when we were talking about this, and the road they had to take, up over the desert, it looked like it was like 1,000 miles. That's a long way to go on a camel.
It's true.
I don't know how fast they can cover ground,
I think it took him months, didn't it?
but I think so.
I would say at least.
That book I gave you, I think it talks about possibly there was a month's journey, more than a month.
Wow. So we've had a 3-day journey to sacrifice Isaac, and now we've got a little month-long journey to get Isaac a bride, yeah. Wow.
And considering what she would be giving up by leaving, she would never go home again.
Yeah.
So that might be why she wouldn't come. That might be why they would maybe predict that somebody would say, no, I'm not going. 1,000 miles away to never come back.
Be a lot to give up. There's been a lot of giving up in that story, hasn't there?
Can't forget God was in the picture the whole time.
That's true. That is true. No matter how far they walked, he was right beside them. Verse 51. Here's Rebekah before you. Take her and go and let her be your master's son's wife. And the Lord has spoken. And it came to pass when Abraham's servant heard these words that he worshipped the Lord, bowing himself to the ground. And the servant brought out jewelry of silver and gold and clothing and gave to Rebekah. He also gave precious things to her brother and her mother. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank and stayed the night. And they rose in the morning and said, send me away to my master. Verse 55. But the brother and her mother said, let the young woman stay with us a few days, at least 10, and then after that she may go. And he heard these things. Do not hinder me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. So they said, we will call the young woman and ask her personally. Verse 58. Then they called Rebekah and said to her, will you go with this man? And she said, I will go. So they sent away Rebekah with her sister. So they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and her men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, oh, sister, may you become a mother of thousands of 10,000s, and may your descendants possess the gates of those who hate them. Then Rebekah and her maids arose and rode the camels, and they followed a man. So the servant took Rebekah and departed. So it sounds like his family was well-to-do too, or her family was well-to-do, because she's got her own nurse and she has her own maids. Verse 63, and Isaac went out to meditate in the field, and that evening he lifted up his eyes and looked, there the camels were coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and she saw Isaac and dismounted a camel, for she had said to the servant, who is this man walking in the field to meet us? The servant said, it is my master. So she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. And then Isaac brought her into his mother's Sarah's tent, and he took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her, so Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Some things, remember I told you last week to pay attention to the servant? How he started out that, well, maybe she won't come. Then he prays that things will work out, and then he prays again and gives thanks. So I don't know, I guess it was just the love for Abraham that made him do this, the prayers. I know that God had a hand in it. But all through this chapter, it talks about Abraham's blessings and his wealth. Let's go back in verse 10. It said, the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, and his master's goods were in his hands, and they arose and went to Mesopotamia, the city of Nahor. Verse 22. So it was when the camels had finished drinking that the man took a golden nose ring weighing half a shekel, and 2 bracelets for her wrist weighing 10 shekels of gold. Verse 30. And it came to pass when he saw the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrist, and when he had heard the words that his sister had said, this man spoke to me. And then they went out to the man where he stood by the camels. Verse 35. Then the Lord said, the Lord has blessed my master greatly. He has become great. He He has given him flocks and herds and silver and gold, male and female servants, and camels and donkeys. Verse 36, and Sarah, my master's wife, bore him a son when she was old, and he has given all that he has to his son. Verse 47, then I asked her and said, whose daughter are you? And she said, the daughter of Bethuel, my neighbor's son, which Michael bore to him. So I put the nose ring on her nose and the bracelets on her wrist. And then the last one was 53. The servants brought out the jewelry of gold and silver and clothing, which he gave to Rebekah. He also gave precious things to her brother and her mother. That really talks about how well God had blessed Abraham.
She's a cousin.
Yeah. Okay, so we know that Sarah's died because Rebekah was comforting Isaac in verse 67. Then he marries again and fathers 6 more sons. And their names are in chapter 25, verses 1 through 6. And Abraham took a wife. Her name was Keturah, and she bore Zimran, Joshan, Median, Ishbak, Shukan, and then it goes on down through the lineage there. We're not going to read that. Verse 7. The sum of the years of Abraham, which he lived on, was 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man full of years, and gathered to his people. And he sent Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Mithran, which before Marin in the field of Ephron, the son of Zerah, the Hittite, the field was the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth. There Abraham was buried, and Sarah his wife. So he was buried with Sarah, his first wife. What?
Roger,
Yes.
in verse, let's see, what should say, Isaac and Ishmael, that's pretty unique when because you always wondered that Ishmael and Isaac might not have got along together,
Right.
because Ishmael was set off.
Yes, he was.
But here it shows quite a respect that Ishmael had for Abraham, Isaac and Ishmael, because where's the other 6 sons?
Yeah.
How come but I think the Lord wanted us to emphasize how important Isaac was in our lives and the determination of how Ishmael become. But again, both sons were there present when they buried their dad.
Has a way of bringing people together, doesn't he? Kind of like Jacob and Esau. They finally got along. Keturah, what was she? Abraham's last wife. What was she? One of the guys that I was reading said that she was a concubine. And then she became Abraham's wife. Any questions on what we've covered so far? His whole life?
Was that definitely chronologically here in the story when this Keturah bore 6 sons? Because if so, it makes Isaac's birth look a little less spectacular.
Yeah, if Abraham was over 140 years old, between 140 and 175, yeah, I can't answer that question. I don't know whether it is or not. Yeah. So,
That could be, if he married this woman, even as a concubine, she could have been some form of a foreigner as he visited, because they had a lot of contractual type marriages where they married other people for the convenience of keeping peace, things in order. So it very well been a Canaanite woman.
could have been. I wondered if it was one of the, what was it here? In verse 6, it said, Abraham gave gifts to the sons of the concubines which Abraham had while he was still living, and he sent them eastward away from Isaac. So I wondered if it was one of those. I don't know. I couldn't find anything it said. We're going to jump into something else if there's no other questions. Okay? His titles. He was called the Friend of God. 2 Chronicles 20. 2 Chronicles 20. And verse 7. So are you not the God whom drove out the inhabitants of this land before your people, Israel, gave it to the descendants of Abraham, your friend forever? Then in Isaiah 41, and verse 8, says, but you, are Israel, are my servant, Jacob whom I have chosen, the descendants of Abraham, my friend of God. James chapter 2, verse 23. Lost James. There he is. 2:23, and the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed God, and was accounted to him for righteous sake, and he was called the friend of God. He was acknowledged of being the father of the Hebrew nation back in Psalms 47. Psalms 47. Verse 9. The prince of the people whom gathered together, the people of God, of Abraham, with this shield of the earth belonging of God, he is greatly exalted. Then again in 105, verse 6. O seed of Abraham, who's his servant, O you children of Jacob, whose chosen ones. Isaiah 41, verse 8, we already read. There's 151, verse 2. Look to Abraham your father, and to Sarah who bore you, for I called him alone, and blessed him, and increased him. In the New Testament, prior to Calvary, the people that died went to a place called Abraham's bosom. Let's look at that in Luke chapter 16. We know that That's the story of Lazarus and the rich man. Rich man fared sumptuously, and Lazarus was full of sores, laid at his gate, desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So it was, the beggar died and was carried away by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died, and being in torments in Hades, he lifted up his eyes afar off and saw Lazarus in Abraham's bosom. The rich man wanted relief, and Abraham told him this couldn't be done. Why? Why could his Lazarus' finger not be dipped in water and touch his tongue just to cool it? What's the story tell us?
Go between those two.
Yeah, you can't go between those two. Yeah. And he had asked Abraham to do what with his brothers and father? Pardon me?
Send someone to warn them.
Send someone to warn him. And what did he tell him?
They listen to Abraham and the fathers. If they listen to them, they wouldn't listen to anyone.
That's right. You can't listen to the prophets, so it's not going to happen. Okay. Let's talk about Abraham's influence. He was referenced by John the Baptist, warning the Sadducees and the Pharisees over in Matthew chapter 3. Matthew chapter 3, verse 7. Oh, before I forget, Ed's going to take over next month, right? And he would like ideas for class, if you could get those to him. 3 verse 7 through 9. But when he had saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees coming to his baptism, he said to them, brood of vipers, who warned you to flee the wrath to come? Therefore bear fruits worthy of repentance, and do not think, say to yourselves, we have Abraham as our father. For I say to you that God is able to raise up the children of Abraham from these stones. So he has referenced Abraham even by John the Baptist. And what was John the Baptist's duty when he was sent to earth? Prepare the way. Okay. Abraham was often referenced by Christ. Let's go to Matthew chapter 8. Start in we'll read 11 and 12. And I say to you that many of you will come from the east and the west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out in the outer darkness, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And then again in Luke is the same thing, and John chapter 8 is the same thing. Okay? To prove that God is the God of the living and not the dead. You'll find that in Matthew chapter 22. Verse 32. It says, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. So he's referenced by Christ there. To contrast himself between him and Abraham, it It's in John chapter 8, verse 58. Jesus said to them, most surely I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. And to testify that Abraham enjoyed the blessings, as John 8, verse 56, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Peter mentions Abraham on 2 occasions in his sermon. Acts chapter 3. Verse 13. So then, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of our fathers, glorified his servant, to whom you delivered up and denied in the presence of Pilate when he was determined to let him go. Think that carried much weight with those people? Being Hebrews.
And did they call Abraham the founder of the faith? So those were like the top patriarchs, you know, when they referred to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, it was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Sure was.
Roger, remember certified, aren't we taught in the New Testament scriptures that no one is to be called father except God?
Except God.
And yet look at the respect that Abraham had, that God even reverenced him as a father.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a small f, but still, the significance, because many of the quotes is someone saying, Father Abraham.
Father Abraham. That's right. Father of the nation. Yep. We got one more, and I think we'll probably quit there because we're going to go into where Paul mentioned Abraham next, I believe. Same chapter, verse 25. You are the sons of the prophets and of the covenant which God made with our fathers, saying to Abraham, in your seed all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Of our fathers, Abraham. So we'll start with how Paul mentions Abraham through his preaching next week. Then there's 3 instances that I found that God himself talks about Abraham. And then there's 10 prayers that he's mentioned in. And we'll see about it. So we will finish right there before we get into this other one. Thank you for your participation. Yes.